enough to be colored in, so you made the artistic choice to only color in one person. That wasn't even asked for, by the way, because that was not what the client asked for. This is just so odd. And then trigger warning for hospitalization and ending ideations. They had posted these to their Twitter that, from what I've seen, is now deleted. Writing, right now I'm hospitalized. I will make an answer and I will show you that I am not a scammer. My pressure rose so high that I have severe bleeding. When I recover, I will show you in my videos my full potential. Is this thumb to a blood pressure monitor? Like, I'm sorry if this is true that you're hospitalized due to severe bleeding from high blood pressure, but like they strapped this on you for a routine checkup to check your blood pressure, which I need to go back in my yearly checkup. This is in Discord, they write, so I'll leave forever because now my psychiatric diagnosis is a lie for some. I effing want to end it all. It's better. So bye and thanks for everything. This person is clearly unwell, and there's like a history of interesting behavior of their art pieces lining up, Bleach manga panels. But honestly, the big one is this really all seemed to have started because they publicly called out a client for a quick change the client added, acting like it's like pulling an arm and a leg and stuff like that. Where also is interesting, and this one, Venezuela's like economy is really upside down, but Venezuela's minimum wage is $3 a month, which is like, first off, abysmal. Nobody's minimum wage should be that low, ever. If you're raking in like a couple hundred USD for commissions, you are making astronomically above your minimum wage. You're doing good for yourself, right? Like, so what's the harm in doing one-click toggle the layer off type thing to make your client happy instead of putting out a big old call-out post because you're mad they wanted one change? So anyways, what are your thoughts on this entire situation? I just think the irony is so interesting. Hopefully they can stop tracing. I try to be optimistic. With the way this person's going, I don't think they're gonna stop, to be honest. But this is just to note, if you are somebody that's received a commission from somebody and you've gotten something traced, it's not your fault. You didn't know and you didn't do anything wrong. You just tried to commission an artist who you liked and respected, and they took advantage of you, and that is truly unfortunate. So don't send hate to any parties involved. That is not cool. We don't do that. Don't be stooping that low, but just be aware. So, if you like this video, I appreciate it. If you like and subscribe, don't forget to check me out on Etsy. I have digital art there for streamers and creators. I also have a Ko-fi with free resources like a free...
In the ICU, I've seen patients being bankrupted by the cost of care. Susan Collins voted to support Donald Trump on the largest Medicaid cut in history. We need to tell Susan Collins to stop siding with Donald Trump.
First day of school, all turned up. Wait, where do you get them from? Nice.
We have a situation of an artist that was called out on Threads, because on one hand, a lot of people feel like this person is tracing AI and hiding it in their process, and there is a large chunk of people that believe the person who called them out is unfairly harassing the artist. So let's delve into the situation, and of course, please don't send hate to any parties involved. So this was posted on Threads, and it reads, I am so effing sick of all these fake artists popping up on my feed. So it is an artist named Montana, and this is the speed paint that is attached. It's a TikTok video posted by this artist on their page in the end of April. And already looking at this, I am already a bit suspicious when you look at the speed paint. I'm gonna add a lot of disclaimers, and if you watch a lot of my videos, you might be tired of it, but just note I have to add it because there's new watchers, right? Every artist has their own art process, and just because their art process doesn't look like yours doesn't mean it automatically means it's AI generated. We need to look at a lot of other context clues, like when this artist started posting, because a big one for AI generated stuff is the artist starts having work that looks suspiciously AI-esque starting around 2022 and after. This artist has a very interesting process of painting, where they do what I kind of like to call the paint by numbers technique, where they put down really small batches of color that are all slightly different, and then they blend everything together. You see that here with how they are coloring the face in. And to me, this is very interesting to look at, because there are very few artists that actually work this way. I'm not saying it's impossible to paint like this. There are legitimate artists that do paint like this. I mean, pulling up one example, this is an artist called Katie on TikTok, where they do have an art process that looks something like this. A lot of people, call this artist AI, but this artist also has traditional paintings where they paint in literally the exact same technique at the exact same skill level they show their digital pieces to be done in. It's another portrait just like what they do digitally. So the reason why I'm bringing this up is that there legitimately legitimately are artists that paint like this. So this on its own is not its own red flag. But to add, it is not the most common way you will find artists painting. It's quite rare to see people paint like this. The other thing this artist does that makes me a bit suspicious of their process is the fact that they immediately know where everything goes. You see them draw out a basic blocky red sketch, and we see like a circular sketch kind of that's supposed to indicate the cranium. But yeah, you see they do this basic sketch. They have a basic framing of the border and the mountains in the background, and then they go into the liner. And in the liner, they also immediately know where everything belongs. Again, are there artists that do draw like this? They do a super rough sketch and go straight into the liner? Yes, it's also very rare. Typically, artists will have to resize things, adjust things. They'll do a more refined sketch before getting into the line art. But as you can see, this artist immediately starts lining. All the eyes, all the hair strands. The eyes are even on the first go. That to me is honestly the most surprising part, because every time I draw like this, one eye is always a little crooked, and I gotta, let me like cut that out and squish it down a little bit. Look a little cross-eyed. Every brushstroke, they immediately know where it needs to go. Even complex elements that artists don't often draw, like the bow. If you're a portrait artist who draw a lot of portraits, maybe you really have this like 3/4 profile down on lock. Okay, but you probably don't draw bows that often, right? Like, all of these are basically immediately perfect. You know exactly where everything goes. Every single tree was already sketched in perfectly. And then the mountains. So we get to the border, they start drawing the border, etc. They do the detailing for the brush, they do the detailing for the bow. And what is also interesting to me is like the mountains and the way they draw the mountains. Again, everything, they immediately know where the colors need to go. Out the gate, and it's automatically perfect. Like, to me, what this is looking like is it looks like you are referencing an outside image or a hidden layer in Procreate. You're color selecting off the hidden layer and then coloring a little bit, color selecting again off the hidden layer, and then coloring a little bit more. This is what I always jokingly like to call the paint by numbers method. But yeah, they continue to do that for the tree, and they do that again for the face. One thing that I find interesting as well is they do this. They cut out the sketch like this for the body, and then they paint over the sketch like that. It's also really, really uncommon, and you rarely see artists paint like this. Again, maybe there are artists where this is their art process, but what are the odds that this artist has a lot of characteristics that are very, very uncommon in artists? This type of oil painting method, which is, again, there are artists who do that, right? But also they somehow immediately know where every sketch, every line art line needs to go with no reworking, no reshaping. Mountains immediately correct. And they also draw the character perfectly blended into the environment out the gate. Colors don't need to be adjusted at all. Well, they do throw this layer on at the end, but you know what I mean? Like, also being able to draw environmental lighting perfectly on the first go.
There it is.
Really, really hard to see that. And a lot of people in the comments are 50-50. There are a lot of people in the comments who are like, yeah, this is super obviously AI. Like, how could people fall for this? And there's other people who are really defending the artist. This person writes, as an artist who commissions Montana, I gotta say how frustrating this witch hunt is. We go over the character information before she even starts. She sent me sketches and updates, and she has made changes for me, which means erasing and redoing, and have added details that are very specific to my characters. I have no doubt in her ability. She has also live streamed her art on TikTok, especially some of my characters. It's such BS to accuse somebody when she clearly puts in the work. And, I mean, personally, I want to believe that, right? I want to believe this person is legitimate. And, of course, if you worked with this artist before, you're going to be more inclined to try to defend them. So I definitely see where they're coming from. But a lot of people are still not quite buying it. Saying things like, hey, I'm going to be honest, I understand this is frustrating, but their art process looks odd. Again, the way this artist paints, it's common amongst oil painters, like the artist that I showed you, to paint like this. You don't see people who only work in digital paint like this. You almost never. It's just harder to do. It's much more common in oil because you have no choice. You're on a canvas. Other people are saying the way her face is immediately rendered. And another person adds, well, here's the artist. They're painting in the exact same method using physical tools. I think you guys are dogpiling for no reason. We have this video where they're testing the Shuttle Art inking pens, and then they're kind of inking together an image, and you can see this is their final product. Yes, looking at this video, this person can draw. This person obviously has hands and is able to, take colored utensils and put together a cute little drawing. But I would argue this does not prove anything, because this is of a much different skill level than the original drawing we showed, right? And a lot of skills aren't like one-to-one transferable. Obviously, when you're testing out new materials, you're not going to be great with the new tools because they're brand new. You've never used them before. You're probably going to draw something simpler, like some cactus plants, etc. But you know, even looking at this, right, the anatomy is a little bit off. The shape of the top of the pot is not the same as the bottom. The bottom is very, very flat. It looks very 2D. The top is very like dynamic with a 3D angle. So even the anatomy here is a little bit off. Again, super chill if you draw this way. This is like no shade, no tea. I think it looks cute. I like the way they rendered this. But the point that I'm trying to make is that this does not prove that they painted this. Because this is of a much more higher skill level. Again, yeah, artists are completely allowed to do cute little silly drawings just for fun with no stress about anatomy, whatever. The point that I was trying to make is that it just doesn't prove it. And another way we can tell is by looking at the artist's page and looking at other videos they have, because obviously all we saw was one so far, right? And here's another video they have, and this is of them painting Chapel Roan. And they show their drawing process. Essentially, this is the final image. I like the little horses, I like the little details added behind the head, but this is of them painting. And so this video was on April 1st, 2025. Maybe it's an older video, I don't know, right? But here we can see kind of where their skill level is at in 2025 of April. Here we have another drawing. Like, this person clearly can draw, right? That is, we're not debating that. They have that ability. But you know, here we have a kind of another example. It is a rougher sketch, so it is in a little bit of a different style. And then this was their drawing 1 month later. Again, artists are allowed to improve at whatever speed they want. There are some artists that lock the F in and improve super, super, super quickly. And there's some artists that take a little bit of a longer time to improve. That is completely fine. But this level of skill jump in 1 month is almost unheard of. To go from like, you know, a really cute painterly style image of Chapel Roan to this realistic portrait of a woman with backlighting, with flawlessly rendered skin. The color choice is 100% on point. I have a hard time believing that in only 1 month. And here we have another speed paint.
In a month? Excuse me?
In the first week of May. Well, it's like May 9th,
also,
right?
yes,
Where
I
you
do
can
know
see
I'm
the way they
recording.
draw. It's a
I
lot
just
of
like
color selecting, placing it
pretend
onto
I'm
a canvas
not.
exactly where that
So y'all
is,
know
blending
how
everything
I
together.
draw half the
And
time. Because it's
I have a
just
feeling they're probably color selecting
how I
from an
do
image
paint sometimes.
like that is a
Most
hidden
of the time,
layer
actually.
in Procreate or something that
Have
we can't see.
the video.
Because to
So
get
by
all
Cat
the
and
colors
Chat,
1000%
it's
accurate
artist who got
here
caught
like
scamming
this,
with AI
like, the
compilation.
odds are
Cat and Chat, 21k views 2 days ago. You should watch this channel.
so
It's really
low.
cool if you like
Again,
art.
unless you have a
and
historical background
hour-long
in painting like this. Again, if
videos.
you're an oil painter, you have a history of
You
oil
like
painting.
this one.
Oil
What
painter.
is pronouns? I need to know. I need to know if they have pronouns. Okay, they don't. I think Cat is a girl
That's
though.
just what they do,
I'm gonna stick with
right?
that. I'm just
You
in
don't
case.
really see people who basically only work in digital
I
mediums
like
paint like
being
this.
safe.
It's just a lot harder. And again, they got all the lighting, all the environmental colors correct on the first go. Because here, look, again, when they paint the eyes in, they use this like teal color for the whites of the eyes. And that's a really interesting choice for eye color on first go. Like, that's typically not a color you would choose on your own. And then bam, you know, with the finished product, right? Did they draw other elements of it themselves, like the hair strands and stuff like that? Yeah, I believe that. But I do think there's like a layer somewhere that's being selected from. So the user who originally called them out went on Threads and made an extra post writing. I want to clarify my stance about Verdant's talent after the post I made a few days ago. Though it's clear this person is rendering their pieces, I am still suspicious of her using AI in her process, at least tracing over AI images. She claims to not use AI to create her art, and it's not a part of her process in any way, end quote, in her response post. I think because she's offering
Sorry,
permissions,
I have my
her use
off.
of AI as a reference should be
Frick!
closed. Please don't
I got
harass
the
this person
brown
or
in the
anyone
freaking
involved.
red I was using. That's like the
I
only
declare
red I
that what
have.
shows
God
you
damn
right now
it.
is an old piece posted more than a year ago, April 1st, 2025.
Hell me was that?
I also included the
notification
original video without
sound.
the overlay. The generated image used as a reference existed at least since 2024. Yeah, that's not a good look. So here we have the original sketch. And this is what I mean by the sketching process is so weird. Because when you take a look, if you look at the sketch, okay, we have blocked out some of the body, we blocked out where some of the hair should go. And then we have blocked out some of the armor.
For cosplay,
This
I'm fine
is
with
a
completely
really
sacrificing a shirt.
loose sketch. I feel
for
like
art.
typically, if
I mean,
you're
the
gonna go
sleeve already
line
has
over
blue
this,
paint
you
on
would
it,
need
might
to
as well get
refine
paint
it
on
a
the
little
rest,
bit more
right?
before lining it. They go straight
It can be
into
like on
liner,
purpose, you
and
know,
again,
brusher cosplay.
everything is perfect. The nose perfect.
Oh my god!
You know, the eye
Frick!
this is a trickier angle. Because you can,
Running with
you know, the
storage.
side profiles
I
and
think I have an
everything
hour-long
draw. They
video I
know
need to get rid of.
exactly where
I
everything
do
goes,
works for
including
actually
fine
just so gotta
detail on
keep
the
it.
shoulder pads for the armor. And one thing that's always to me interesting when it comes to these types of processes when somebody, you know, is like allegedly tracing AI images, right, is that they kind of start drawing with no really rhyme or reason. Like, they're drawing the hair, but they're starting to draw the hair from like the middle of the blob of the long hair in the back. as you can see with like strands appearing here. Again, some artists do this, so this on its own, right? It's just one little thing. Maybe it's an artist quirk. You don't often see artists start drawing from the middle of the blob of the hair. Like typically you start from the top, or you start from some place that connects to something. The ear, starting from the ear, okay, that can make sense, right? But the middle of this chunk of flowing hair, I find that also odd. But the most odd part of all is just how rough the sketch is versus how clean and perfect the line art is. Because yeah, now we have the line art, right? And then they're sketching and shading it with pencil detailing for the rest of the body. And again, everything is perfect from the first
red to
go.
dry?
And this was their final product, right? But it turns out they were tracing over an AI generated image. This is the image they were tracing over. This one is most definitely AI generated. This is not even a braid. What? This is like thorns stuck in the head, hair looping back and forth on each other, details that don't add up. What is this thing melting into the hand and this arm is missing? If you watch this video where they overlaid a faint image of that AI image on top of what this person is drawing, you can now see why all of the confident line art makes sense. Because they're tracing over this AI image that
I need to paint the
overlaps
bottle cap,
literally
so while we wait for the
one-to-one.
red to
This is
dry,
really,
we will
really
paint
damning. And in my personal opinion, this is my theory as to how this artist draws, in that they have a hidden layer in Procreate they're tracing over and color selecting. So is each
Oh, there's still
brushstroke
soda in there! There's soda at the very bottom of this! Oh my god!
This is just a
Oh, this is
complicated
Fanta
way to
from
trace
Domino's
in,
I had today.
utilize
My
AI
Domino's.
imagery in the art process.
We
And
gotta
after
paint
seeing this, people are
this.
completely in agreement with the person who made this post, writing the sketching is, in my
Okay,
opinion,
so,
very unrealistic.
I don't think
I
the
don't
red's
need to
gonna
see that
come
they trace
out,
because there's
so,
no erasing, no correcting, no mistakes, nothing. It's not even a sketch
Let me
because a
see
sketch is
this.
supposed to be done to
Yeah,
figure out how you
okay,
want the
actually
drawing to
can.
look and to put down guidelines.
Scissors.
Even the face guidelines feels off. It's basically the size of somebody tracing who doesn't even know how to draw at this level. And yeah, in my opinion, it's even more obvious in some of their later speed paints. They have this one of this magical character where they show the speed paints. And again, we have super basic sketch. Poof, they immediately know where all of the lines go. Immediately draws an extremely complex background. And then look at how they draw the background. This is a really odd process to draw the background as well. They have the sketch of the character completely blocked out in gray, and they do the background behind the character. They don't just toggle the character off, almost as if they're working entirely on one layer. But again, did you see how they drew the background? They know exactly where everything goes. All the environmental colors immediately placed correctly, and then they do the paint by numbers thing for the rest of the face. And that is essentially how they go and draw this entire character. And this was a commission too, which just, again, don't send hate to the author. I don't think the author knows it all, right? But quite certain that this is also tracing over an AI generated image. Well, it's another day, and we have an update to this situation. And we don't talk about the hair. This is a mess. So the original OP writes, Verdant Palette, shameless liar trying to scam authors. So much for claiming not to use AI in her process after my first call out. I found new proof of her recent works being traced and color picked over AI and other artists' work. It's clearly a pattern. So this was a post they made to their TikTok page explaining everything. Where Verdant writes, it came to light that I had traced artwork in the past and I want to address it directly. The answer is I did. It was years ago when I was still learning digital art, and I should never have posted it as original work. When it resurfaced, it was actually through a re-upload of an older video that I honestly forgot was still on my account. That doesn't excuse it, and I take responsibility for that mistake. Because of this, I have removed the trace content from my account. What I do want to make clear is that my commission work and the artwork I have created for clients was drawn by me. I have spent countless hours creating those pieces, including the book covers and commissioned artwork I have delivered over the last year or so. I am embarrassed that this happened, and I understand why people are disappointed. The people I feel most apologetic towards are my past and current clients, because they place their trust in me. All I can do now is be honest, acknowledge the mistake, and continue taking responsibility for it. I'm gonna take some time and think about my next steps. So you want to do reference studies to learn to progress your artwork, you want to trace to progress your artwork. Artists do that all the time. But don't post it and claim it as your own work, because it legitimately isn't. But beyond this kind of feels like downplaying the situation a little bit, because it's a little more than what was implied as just one traced art piece that was on their page that was a little oopsie. Because we have some examples. The OP adds these examples. Here we have a side-by-side of the AI reference versus their artwork. Here we have an original art piece by an artist named Meryl Varolian and Verdant's work. Here we have another side-by-side. This is an AI reference, and this is their work. Here we have an AI reference, their work, and then the side-by-side. You get the point. OP adds, by the way, this is her pricing, and these are her time lapses overlaid with the reference photos. Videos that were published between November 2025 and January 2026. not the old pieces she talks about in her fake apology. The bust shoulder up is
I don't know what this
USD,
paint
a
thing's
half
made of.
body is
It was able to cut
$350, and a full body
freaking
is
white.
$500 for traced images. And here we have a speed paint where they overlaid their speed paint with the traced image. And as you can see, this is what I mean by the color picking method, because it literally looks like they're selecting off of the image below, and you can see it in the rendering process. Here we have another example. Now again,
Oh,
like the disclaimer that I want to add.
I think I
there
got
are
the paint
traditional
on
artists
that.
who paint like this. Oil painters will paint like this so that they will have an art process that looks something like this. Very likely it's not going to exactly one-to-one overlap the image below as if they're tracing an image on Procreate, because you know, they're not doing that. Like, these are all so damning. And the commentators are feeling something. A user writes, there was an obvious difference between the pieces she drew herself, much older uploads, and her more recent ones, which were clearly AI paintovers. It's that. She could have just continued to try to improve as an artist.
I did it,
I like to
guys.
pull up the benefit
Oh my
of
God.
this doubt,
Okay,
but it
get
was
out.
clear that she was painting over AI when her style suddenly morphed into that standard AI semi-realism, and she appeared to improve drastically overnight, all while coloring in pointillism with absolutely zero errors. And another user says, the biggest red flag for me was the fact that she uses an almost pointillism style for adding her color, and then she blurs everything. Not mix, straight up blur. A person who has her supposed skill level of drawing, composition, or color theory should be able to understand to not overblend and blur. And the end result, well, now on their TikTok page, they've closed their commissions and removed all of their videos. And some people in the comments were like, hey, a lot of y'all owe OP an apology, because people were on the artist side at first, being like, oh, you're just bullying this poor artist. And again, of course, we want to defend artists, and no fault for people giving benefit of the doubt to an artist that they really want to defend, you know, because we want to support artists in this day and age.
I'm going a little high though, so like I need to go down.
This person was hitting a lot of the massive red flags that a lot of these AI scammers tend to show. Again, don't send hate, don't bully any parties. But what are your thoughts on this entire situation? Because this is just one of many people who tried to scam with an art process like this. And you know the wildest part? We have an honorable mention. There's a post by this user. No, we found out that you're actually tracing AI. And the amount of AI on all your socials is crazy work. The artist posted this 27 hours in, and it shows part of their drawing process. They're drawing in Procreate.
I'm getting
this is their art piece,
blood.
their final product.
Not
Wow,
blood.
you know, they have
It's
books, they
paint.
have
YouTube, don't
the
worry. It's
frame, all
literally
of this.
you can
They
see the
posted
bottle.
this like a week earlier.
I'm stable.
You just traced over. I don't know what to tell you.
Oh my
You
God,
didn't
bro,
draw
my
nothing.
shirt is covered in
So,
paint.
Again, the whole
I
point, this is
wonder
not
why.
to anybody. This is just to bring awareness, and this person less so, but they were
Third
trying to claim they drew it
freaking
themselves.
bottle is
Obviously,
also
they
maybe
didn't.
a
Lying
red
on the
tint.
internet,
My
that's
top
what
is
everyone
weird.
does, right? The previous person
can
we
get
talked
rid of
about
that.
is scamming because they're offering commissions, and people are buying the commissions, likely under the guise
Got it.
thinking that it's handmade work, when it's really somebody just tracing over and color selecting an AI
I'm
image
actually
hidden
gonna
in
like
a
put
hidden
my
layer
case
in
back
Procreate.
on.
Don't send hate to any parties involved, but if you are looking to commission artists, again, do your due diligence, do some research, and look into that artist. If their
There we
art process looks like it's hitting a lot of the markers that I talked about in this video, maybe hit up an artist friend to get them to double check for you to see if this person
I'm an
is
artist.
legit or not. Is this a story
And also, like, a
where the
cosplayer.
artist has been using AI and hiding it this
I'm a
entire
cosplayer.
time?
I wanna see if I can
or
make a Danger
is the
cosplay, so, like-
inconsistencies that people see
I think
due
Danger
to an
is like
upscaler?
chill now. We
So
can play it.
let's delve into the situation. And a little warning,
Without
the
being
artist's
like-
artwork is a little spicy. And again, don't send hate to any parties involved. Essentially,
What
this
is
artist
this,
posted
like-
a photo of 4 drawings of feet of different gacha game characters. And a lot of people are hyping it up. It's in a very, very like semi-realism anime style, one that is really popular with the Twitter artists, and also one that's really popular with like AI scammers. So a lot of people were harping on the quality, being like, wow, this looks so good, you draw so amazing, this post went viral, it's at 1 million views. And then there are a bunch of little comments that cropped up in the comment section being like, yo, so what AI generator do you use? What AI do you use? Like, blah 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 blah. This art looks very suspicious. And then people were taking a closer look at this artist's artwork and looking at points of the artwork that look very odd. So a user writes, I don't mind the AI, but hey artist, stop posting work in progresses, you're not fooling anyone. So they look through some images of their artwork and kind of highlight aspects of it. Here we have a character that's laying down, they're doing what looks like the splits, I think, and they're wearing a brown top with kind of longer sleeves, but there is like a draping portion of the fabric that extends beyond where either sleeve would exist, which I agree is odd. the big thing when it comes to like, is this AI, is it not? I always say this in my videos, right? Just in case you haven't seen it before. But one, you want to look at the full picture, because if it's a one or two things, it could just be human error. Humans make mistakes. Sometimes humans draw 6 fingers on one hand. It accidentally happens. If you make 1,000 art pieces, one of them you might accidentally muck up. Right? There's forgiveness for that, but you really have to ask yourself, like, would a human draw this?
And honestly, if
Two,
someone
are
tried
there
like
AI
using
looking
like the
mistakes, and
finger
does it
thing on
happen
any
very
of my
frequently
pieces,
throughout multiple
you
of their
can't.
art pieces, or a high percentage
You've
of their
seen
art
my
pieces?
style.
3,
If
what's your
you've
posting
ever, if
frequency?
you're a
If you're posting, like,
recurring viewer.
every single day fully rendered images.
Yes, I do
Well,
know
do
I
they
was
have a
handing my
backlog
scissors.
to make
It's
this make
not the
sense?
first
Is
pair.
that adding up? And a lot of other things. So
Jesus,
this is a really interesting choice. There are some other interesting elements with this artist's artwork, and we'll see this throughout the artwork, but they have a tendency to draw
So I guess I
multiple
don't
eyelids on
really
only
need to.
one eye, and that is something that you will see with a lot of like AI images. This eye
Freak! I
has
think it fell upside down.
3 eyelids.
No, it
and
didn't.
the
Hey, I'm so
left
lucky.
eye has 1. Again, like, you have to ask yourself, would a human do that? Yes, there are people with 3 eyelids on one eye. Sometimes they rub one eye too hard, that happens. But you don't often see artists drawing that. Here we have another piece.
Oh my god.
Characters
Okay,
like making a heart with
there
their
we
hands,
go.
except this hand,
So you see this?
the pink fingernail has
Just
another
give it a
long
red
line
tint and
extending
really thought,
behind
okay,
it.
let's stop
It's
hitting my.
almost as if it's
Woo!
a massive pink
Fixed.
French tip on only one finger. Another thing that you kind of look at is consistency within the character design, especially because this artist tends to draw characters from popular
They're cute,
IPs
though.
like anime, gacha games, etc. This is, I believe, Mern from Dress Up Darling, I think. But regardless, 2
I got the
earrings.
dry so I can paint
right?
it again.
Earring on the
This needs.
left is not the same
Frick,
as
I
the
forgot
earring on
I'm
the
missing
right.
the
She
main
has a
thing. It
open
fell
right ear and
off.
a stud in the left ear. Not saying you can have asymmetrical earrings, because people do that. Kind of just interesting. Another one is, again, consistency of how things are drawn, especially in the same piece. 2 characters, 2 ears, both drawn very differently in the exact same art
Anyway.
piece. Which is, again, interesting. This one
Anyway,
is
number 2.
pretty damning. We have this character, and she's holding kind of like 2 hands together, like one hand on the back of the other hand. The index finger just disappears. Their index finger is like missing after the first knuckle. So the tip of the finger, the other knuckle, all gone. Very interesting. And then again with the ear, because this ear is drawn very differently than the other 2 ears we saw in the previous piece. And like there's other elements of the artwork I'm not gonna mention because it's not relevant, right? But like here there's a dot on the sleeve. That could just be human error. You accidentally made a brush stroke and it left there. So that's like a human error that you could easily explain away. Other oddities like the missing finger. Weird. This piece specifically is quite egregious because if you look at this hand here, there are way too many fingers on the other hand. Because if you have one hand on top of the other hand, right, your thumb is a really short finger. It won't be visible here. But if you look, you can see in the hand pose, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fingers. There should only be 4 visible from this angle, right? If I'm trying to like recreate this hand pose here, you cannot see the thumb from that angle. You just can't. You would have to do some sort of like really arbitrary movement with the hand to see the thumb, and that would cause all of the top knuckles to then become visible. This just doesn't make sense. So in the same piece, we have 2 different finger ears, 1 ear on each hand. And I'm gonna be honest, you're telling me an artist of this caliber, with this level of rendering, this level of anatomy, etc., can't get the fingers correctly on both hands of the same piece? Again, one-time mistakes do happen, but both hands. Not to mention these 2 fingers, the anatomy, it's just very off. Like the angle compared to these other 3. And then, if you look at this piece, there's even more oddities with the coloring. Because the clothing,
another thing
she's
I wanna
wearing
do.
this like blue top and there's this like baby blue
I think I
coloring
made a little
happening.
bit, but
But
yeah.
inside the neck area, it's also baby blue, even though that's supposed to be the skin. So maybe the artist accidentally colored outside of the line? Maybe? We have some more blue here. Like, it's just a lot of AI-looking errors all on the exact same piece. Like, what are the odds you made this many, specifically AI-looking mistakes on one piece? Missing fingers, 6 fingers on one hand, and the blue extending beyond the top.
Frick!
Not to mention the top line.
That O
it
was
disappears behind
way
the hair,
too
and then
small
it
compared to the
reappears,
P.
but, like,
It's
moves
fine.
2
You know what?
millimeters
It's
beneath it. This
fine.
piece looks quite
I
AI-assisted,
could fix
if
it.
you will. And it continues.
have my
This user
red.
adds, I was wondering how somebody got this good at drawing, but the more I looked at their account, and they highlight even more oddities within the art pieces. Take a look at the eyelids again. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 eyelids on the right eye and 2 on the left. You just don't really see artists doing that. And another one at the earrings with details that don't match up, left earring versus right earring. This is very odd. And
How
again, these are
beautiful.
not like human errors, because you have to think again, would a human draw the right earpiece completely differently from the left earpiece? They look very similar, but they're not the same. Another commenter adds that any Yae Miko fan, that's the character, would note that Yae Miko only has 2 diamond piercings per ear. So they note that there are 4 on the left ear and 3 on the right ear, which that's again odd. This is the other thing I was talking about in terms of character consistency, because if you are drawing fan art of characters, you would look up a reference photo of the character, but to consistently get really odd things
I wanna add,
incorrect
like,
about
a
the
little
character
more
design
details
is
to
something you
it.
would see with AI generated imagery and not something that an artist hand draws. Again, I'm not saying you can't make a mistake here or there, but like every single piece has so many errors. Another one where there's odd details on this bow. So this one is a character called Columbina from Genshin as well. And then here again we have lace, the lace crisscrossing in her hair, turning into a hair strand. Another lace crisscross turning into a hair strand. And a final thing to add is her mask. This is what Columbina's mask looks like. It's a very like crisscrossy diamond looking design. What is happening here? Especially over on the left eye.
Beautiful.
The right eye, that makes sense. The left eye, what in the garbled mess is happening here? Again, when you ask yourself, would a human draw it like this? Would they draw it to make it look like it's completely overlapping each other in some aspects and then broken in other chunks? The diamonds don't even connect on this side. But they do
There's
on the
one
other
more thing
side.
I gotta do.
Odd. They show the artist can do it. Weird. A small leather
The orange cylinder, yeah. So I was trying to make the pop normal one from Danny Shore with the soda thing. It's absolute dog water. So we're gonna go make another one with paint instead. So my paint dries.
Another hand with a random finger.
So let's paint it red, red pop on it, color it in.
But again, like the angle of getting your thumb finger there, it's just awkward. More garbled mess on the hair strands happening over here on the shoulder. And then another character where there's a bunch of diamonds.
Is there an
on
easier
the
way to do
shoulder
this?
pad, except
Yeah, I
each
can just take
diamond
the tape
looks
off.
slightly different from the next one, but not in a way that makes sense.
Don't
and
feel
here
like
we
it.
have another hand.
Ooh.
What is happening to the pinky finger?
Come on.
There's a pinky and there's webbing between the pinky and the finger, which is really
Pop
odd.
back.
There's more. If you look through your artwork, there's
Come on,
a lot
come
again
on.
of inconsistencies. This
Come on,
character
Sutter.
is wearing yours earrings, your costume from Spy X Family. The two earrings are not the same. Yours earrings do match left and right.
I guess
Here we
you
have another
don't.
piece.
That's not.
This is Marin
I'm
from
not
Dress Up Darling, and
So,
she's got the elf ears.
red.
But look at the ear between the face and this side bang piece. What exactly is happening here? And there's like one earring, but only on this ear. Again, a human just wouldn't draw this. It just does not add up. It doesn't make sense. Another one, we have this piece, and if you look at the hands, maybe it's human error, but we've got a pinky that's half the length of the rest of the fingers. And again, you could argue human error from the angle. It's kind of like a hard angle to draw with the fingers here, maybe. This person is
But I don't
pretty
think
good
I
at
painted,
anatomy of what it looks like. So
white
it's a bit
first.
interesting to see. But also, what's also interesting is that once
You know,
again,
base
the
coats,
design
apparently.
is strong.
I think
So
that's what
here,
this is
I
called,
believe
right?
this is Ganyu from Genshin Impact, and they're
Also,
wearing
yes,
the
this
outfit
is
of
not. This is
Uraraka
original.
from My
This is an
Hero
actual
Academia.
Fanta bottle.
Except the
You can see
outfit is wrong. They have the
can't.
headpiece on.
This
And
was an
according
actual
to
Fanta
the
bottle.
Pure
This
Heroes
was
fandom,
orange
the
soda
first
from
hero
Market
costume,
Basket, so
she had that
knockoff.
headpiece, but there's also like a face screen to it. And in
Because
the
it's,
second
like,
costume, it becomes that sort of
cheaper.
headband looking thing, which is what we see here.
That's fine. You know, I'm
Except
broke.
The headband,
I'm
like,
broken, I admit it.
the
So what I'm gonna
earpiece
do
when she wears it, there is
is
no
I'm gonna,
pink
like-
stripe on the bottom here. There's only pink appearing above the headpiece here. And this is her second
Hold
hero
it.
costume, where as you can see, there is like kind of a belt around her waist, but does not connect in the middle. But in this costume, she actually has a belt that does connect in the middle, and that's an element from her first hero costume.
Oh.
Where again, the headpiece does have a screen, but it doesn't have that pink stripe.
My Hero
either.
Academia
So
character.
it's again just really
I know that
interesting because they
show.
draw so
My girlfriend
much
likes
art of
it.
fandoms and like characters from pieces of IP and media, but somehow all of their outfits are almost there, but also wrong. Because I feel like if you're referencing an outfit that Uraraka would wear, you would either choose like the first costume or the second
Again,
costume. Maybe the
Orange
artist made a
from
choice to
Market
mix and
Basket.
match,
My
but
mom
even
works on
then
Market
they
Basket,
also
so I have
got
a lot
it
of Market
wrong
Basket stuff.
again. So anyways, I could keep going, but there are a lot of inconsistencies in the artist's work, and a lot of people in the comment section were pointing it out as well. But for OP, who made that call-out post, a lot of people were actually not agreeing with OP, being like, there's not enough accusations, there's not enough points, you're making baseless accusations at a poor artist and drawing a lot of attention to them for no reason. Why don't you DM them? In which OP was like, I can't DM them, you have to be verified to actually message this artist. You know, other people are like, hey, there are tiny mistakes, it's pretty hard to notice, I'm very anti-AI, but there's not enough evidence for this artist specifically. And then another person in the comments drops a photo of Columbina's mask. The commenter was like, oh, never mind, I take it back, that is actually really messed up. What's also interesting is this artist has posted a couple work in progresses. So this is a work in progress they posted February 17th. And by the way, this artist has only been posting on Twitter since February, and they stated publicly on their Twitter that, yeah, you know, they have been drawing for a while, but they only started posting on Twitter starting February after being
I was just gonna use it for goddamn cosplay. God damn it!
Progress they posted. This is another one where they switched over
I
to
my cosplay
Studio
outfits. I was
Paint,
painting
and
with my
this
7
is
cosplay
the
on
final
earlier, and I got
work
like
in
a bunch of
progress that
freaking
they
paint on the
posted,
shirt.
where here you can see there are a lot of layers that are open.
Yeah, it's got
there
brown
are
paint on
work
my
in
T-Tom
progresses,
cosplay.
which with a lot of those AI accounts, they don't have
Actually,
many.
I'll
So
see a
having
few
some
times.
work in progresses can be a situation where it clears your name because it's like, okay, well, here are some examples of you drawing, possibly, right? But other people in the comments were saying, like, hey, this doesn't necessarily prove that you drew it yourself. A lot of people can take an AI generated image and reverse engineer it to go and get a sketch from that to try to make it look like you drew it when you didn't. So people are saying, okay, stream your art, blah, 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 blah. And now, what does the artist have to say about all of this? Because all of a sudden, a lot of people are pointing fingers at them and accusing their work of being AI generated. So the artist says, there's no tricks. I'm pretty open about my previous use of tiled upscalers that use AI. But I've moved on from that for a bit now because of the detail discrepancies in discourse it causes. As for frequency, I joined Twitter in February. I didn't start drawing in February, but I get the initial suspicion. And the artist adds, I don't mind the conversation to be had around previous use of the upscaler. There's much I learned from having them and a lot I wish I hadn't used it for. However, I don't appreciate the picking up a pencil and spending time on something and then getting stuff like this in the mentions. Again, referring to AI accusations. Now, about the AI upscalers, this is not the first time there's a situation where an artist was accused of using AI and they've stated,
Oh,
but I
really?
use AI upscalers,
Cool.
that's why my art looks really chopped. It's not because I use AI to generate the image,
Oh, wait, so you know the
but I
pop
drew it
from the
correctly.
volatile pops
The
from Danny
upscaler
Shot?
was
I
why
made
it
it.
looked messed up.
pretty
First
cool.
off, I
I'm working
don't
on the
believe
actual
that
pop.
defense,
There's a
honestly, for the
It's a real
reason
thing.
that there are too many errors
He's cool.
that don't make sense
I
in
like
the
him.
argument of, oh, but it was just an upscaler. Because, like, would an upscaler add 2 earrings to the left ear and 1 earring to the right ear so that there's a total of 3 extra earrings on this character? Would an upscaler completely chop off only 1 finger, only the index finger, none of the other fingers are chopped off, and add an extra finger on the other hand? Like, would an AI upscaler suddenly give your character a web pinky? I could maybe buy the excuse of, like, an AI upscaler adding artifacts or something, which is why it looks a little crunchy. Webbing to fingers, removing fingers, and adding extra fingers, I really don't think the AI upscaler does that. And for more context about how this artist
I'm gonna wait for
operates,
this to
they have a
dry.
fully rendered piece about every 3 days, which is really,
Is
really
this
high
dried
frequency.
yet?
Now, if you
No,
want
it's
to believe this
not.
artist, right, they do state that they've been drawing since before February, which you would have to if this is the level of quality of art that you draw at, so they could possibly be posting backlog. But then we add the extra context of the fact that they have a Patreon,
painted myself.
specifically an NSFW Patreon, where you can subscribe to get more, sus images of the artwork. So beyond just 3 posts a day, there's also more posts, different variations, etc., being posted to their Patreon. So it's even more art than 3 a day. And again, with the Patreon, I'm not saying every artist ever with a Patreon means that you are generating images with AI. That's not true at all. There are plenty of legit artists with legit Patreons. But this is a common MO you see with a lot of the AI scammers. They LARP as a real artist. They post a lot of, for lack of a better word, a really voluptuous anime woman, and then have an NSFW Patreon, and that's what a lot of them do. The posting frequency, the Patreon, and all of the errors in their artwork alongside the claim of, oh, but like it was a generator upscaler, which is why it looks this way. I personally don't buy it. I'm curious about your thoughts though, because the artist is gung-ho about the fact that all of these errors are actually just due to the upscaler and that they're open for conversation about it. It was something they did in the past and they regret it. I'm curious about your thoughts at the end of the day. Do you think this artist is legitimately drawing all these pieces and they're being falsely accused due to the AI upscaler they use in their past gargling up their work?
Sean, this is
Or do you think
a
it's
compilation. I have a
situation
feeling
where
they
were
did use
generating
AI.
stuff with AI and are trying to LARP as a real artist when they're not? I would say the final thing is, if the true issue is the fact that you used an AI upscaler and that is why it looks like AI chewed up and spat out your artwork, then why not just post the low-res version? The original version without pre-upscaler. You must have access to it, right? Rarely do you see artists deleting every single working file the moment they post the artwork so that you can clear the air. Oh, here's the original version. Yeah, there's a finger here, and yeah, it didn't look like this. I'm just not buying it because this was an excuse that I've already seen before with a different artist a while ago, and it was very, very likely confirmed that that person was using AI. So this kind of sounds like it's a similar story. Here are some posts that I found that I just thought was really funny because it kind of felt like the person, the artist, or the commenter was just trying to rage bait the art community. So let's delve in, and again, don't send hate to any parties involved. So this first post, and apologies if I don't read their username right, like Juarez Baguettes, they write, and it was translated from French. A bunch of jealous people. My art is better than most of you modern weapons without any real depth. Learn art before trying to criticize an artist who truly understands the full scope of art like me. And so here they posted their commission graphic,
Okay,
where
so
it ranges from a basic sketch to a
you know,
full
I love the
complete
French twin.
illustration.
This is
Their
definitely
basic
AI.
sketch for 50 euros.
From the
and their
AI I've
full
seen.
illustration goes for 200 euros. And again, I'm not making any points about the price necessarily because every artist is allowed to price their artwork at whatever pricing they think is fair to them. Just make sure you're getting paid fairly for the time that you're putting into it. The real controversy that comes in with the absolute ratio that happened with this post is the fact that if you take 2 seconds to look at the artwork, it looks really AI. And again, AI trains off of real artists, so there's of course going to be real humans with artwork that quote unquote looks AI. That's because AI stole from them. But this person's artwork features a lot of irregularities that you just simply wouldn't find in human artwork. Here we have an example of the basic sketch in which the bangs of the hair actually cut into the ear. There is a bow that is like cropped off, I think, and then the hair also blends into the clothing, and there is one drawstring for a shirt that doesn't have a hood. So interesting. Now we have the simple color for 100 euros, where the 2 earrings don't match. She is cross-eyed because of where the highlights are placed in the eyes, and there are odd crunchy detailing happening in the hair. For 150 euros, you can go and get the detailed color, where we again have hair strands that melt into the clothing, more hair strands melting into the clothing, an ear that is
hanging
floating
around
because the bang
you.
is like also melting into the ear, a hand in a pocket with 2 fingers coming out like this. Like, who puts their hand in a pocket like this? We can have a detailed scene for 180 euros, where there are mismatched floating string lights that are like mushed against the wall, and framed pictures that have absolute garbage in it, or a really chopped up plant on the desk. Or for 200 euros, you can get a complete illustration, and our character is turned into a witch, and there is bacteria in the sky. That's like the best way I could describe it. And she's losing hair. There's dandruff falling out of her hair in the bottom here. And this plant is also disintegrating, and so are these plants. This makes absolutely no sense. And the funny part too is that, like, in this progression, it looks like it's supposed to be the same girl from sketch all the way to complete illustration, except it's like not the same character because the hair color and texture changes frame by frame, but only just slightly, where maybe it's the same character, but like she used a hair curler in this picture. You know what I mean? All in all, this is looking extremely AI. Oh my god. So nobody's buying it in the comment section, and some people were responding. And this person writes, "Excuse me, this isn't meant to offend you, but your prices are so high for the prompts, and the fact there's sketches or advanced drawings is at your discretion, right? So why is the margin between the highest price and the lowest price so big?" And the artist says, "Good question, because the two are very different. Because the one for 200 euros, I put all of my cognitive capacity, all my acquired experience into
Okay,
a 200 euro
Saipow!
to offer excellence for my clients." Another commenter says, "I don't want to get into any trouble or anything, but wouldn't this count as stolen art? Knowing the AI takes images and art from the internet to fuse them into a single image, wouldn't that mean the illegitimate use of previous works? Even so, people can do whatever they want." And OP says, "No, it's a lot of work." Another person says, 200 euros for a product not made by you? And OP says, "It is made by me. Homie, just because you went into ChatGPT and prompted up an image doesn't mean you actually drew it yourself." So somebody else took their prompt and then redid it, I guess, in their variation with their AI drawings, and was like, "Why would I pay you when in 30 seconds I can get the same thing for free?" And then OP says, "Wow, you're clearly stealing from me." And another person says, "Are you seriously charging the price of a designer handbag for a mediocre AI generated drawing? Is everything alright at home?" And OP says, "It's not mediocre." And the top comment says, "Nobody's jealous. We're just outraged that talentless people like you charge for typing prompts into a shitty AI while pretending it was done by hand. Screw off, you're literally pooping on real artists by doing that." And OP says, "No, I don't have talent, not like you." And then they got community noted. So the community note says, "The user uses AI for making commissions." Thus the quote. And then there is this phrase in French that apparently translates to, "I'll draw for you," end quote. That claim is erroneous? I've actually never had to say this word out loud. Is erroneous and misleading towards potential clients that seek somebody actually drawing commissions and not just prompting their commissions. This person is clearly just rage baiting and attention seeking. They quote retweeted their post writing, "It's crazy the number of people too lazy to appreciate what they see. and who confine themselves to their idea that my creations are so-called ugly, just to prop up their little ego. Like, no, it's because it's AI. Ugh, AI equals ugly. Oh my god. Own up to the fact that I'm just better. LOL. That's the problem with like the rise of AI at the end of the day, because you get like the rise of people like this. I mean, everybody rage baits, you know, or not everybody, but the internet is full of rage baiters. In every community, every space, there's always going to be rage baiters and people who just have, I guess, a lot of free time, so they thrive off of pissing off other people. That's just life at the end of the day. Don't give these people attention because that's literally all they want. But
Paint
I
on my
thought it was
freaking
funny
case,
because
bro.
it made its round on Twitter and it got a lot of interactions. Next up, we have this post, and it is a screenshot of a comment that reads, "Art usually takes 2 to 3 weeks max. Anything longer than that, the person is lazy and wasting your valuable time and money. I have commission for art. Max it's taking me is 2 weeks. If somebody is paying you their hard-earned money, they should be valued for it. I really hope you can get your art soon. If not, we can chat. I got a few slots open. Wink." And OP writes, "Just read a comment saying that if an artwork takes longer than 2 to 3 weeks to complete, the artist is lazy." And honestly, I think this comes from a misunderstanding of what full-time commission artists actually do behind the scenes. A lot of us are not producing quick or simple art. Very often for books, we create highly detailed, fully rendered illustrations that can take 50 to 100 plus hours for a single piece. That is multiple full work weeks spent
It's a
on
little
one
pink
artwork
because, you know,
alone.
I'm
When
a
an artist
little
is a long
impatient. Didn't
queue,
want to wait
look
for
out till
the
next year.
white to
It usually
dry.
doesn't mean they're lazy. It
That's
usually
why I
means
wipe
that many
half of
people
it
trust
off.
them with their art at the same
It's
time.
fine.
They're balancing multiple commissions daily, and they're trying to survive while working in an industry with no paid, stable salary, sick leave, and no vacations. And that freelance artists still have bills and things to pay while working on older commissions. And artists in the comments definitely completely agree. Another person says, "What an idiotic and ignorant take. I work 7 days a week, draw every day. I draw at least 7 hours a day when working on projects. I do long days, 10 hours of drawings for sure. My style is super detailed and artworks take weeks. These people need to educate themselves and shut their mouths." Whoa, this is sick. This is a side-by-side of their line art versus the final. And oh my lord, the amount of hours the line art must have taken. And not even counting the rendering, just the line art. Another person says, "My commission art takes an average of 3 to 4 weeks to finish, sometimes a bit more depending on complexity. This includes research, planning, sketches, etc. Recently, I decided to take Sundays off from drawing commissions just so I could rest and recharge. I do my best to create something my clients would love, and I do this with a day job too. Please don't call all of us lazy just because we don't finish an artwork in 2 weeks." And other people were saying that they felt suspicious about the commenter due to the fact that their profile looks AI generated, which their profile is like kind of cropped off, so it's pretty hard to tell when you see only the bottom. It's definitely twofold, right? Because it comes with a tricky situation. I completely agree that like it depends on the type of artwork that is commissioned. Just straight up calling an artist lazy for taking a specific amount of time on your work is really, really you're casting a wide net, and very likely you're
Brag!
There
I keep
are
dropping
some
this bottle
instances
cap!
of taking on way too many commissions and then dragging it on for hella long because they were being lazy, but that is like the fringe case scenario. Most artists don't work like this because if you do work like this, most of the time you're not going to get commissions after a while, and then you're gonna lose your job, which is not what artists want. But there are so many types of art commissions that simply, if the artist were to sit down and work on it day in, day out, it will take them longer than 2 weeks to do it. VTuber models, full book commissions, right? If you're doing like a full package,
I'm running a
of
storage,
covers,
so
plus
I'm
the
not
inside art for the book, plus
Yo!
detailed foiling, etc. That's gonna take you a long time because it's
Again, you should
very,
watch this
very
person.
complex
They're cool. If you
commission
like art
listen.
and
also there's a lot of back and forth time
yappers.
too. You do the sketch, you give the sketch to the client,
should
you wait
like
for the
this
client to
person.
respond. Sometimes it takes them a
Cool.
little bit.
I like
You get the response,
painting
okay, now you work on the
their
flat colors,
videos in
send
the
it back and
background.
let them approve the flat colors. You
Ignore
have to
that.
wait
My
again for their
room
response. So the
is,
overall working
especially
time of the
that
commission
cup,
will
that
take
blue
sometimes
cup,
longer than
it's
2
gross.
weeks because you're just waiting for communication. And then,
Really
of
gross.
course, a lot of
So
artists
bye,
will take on more than one commission at a
guys.
time.
No one's gonna
Because
watch.
you end
It's
up in
just me
situations
painting
like
for
this, where
47
if you work
minutes.
on only one commission at a
Okay, see
time,
ya.